Well, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Sina Haynes and I am your VP for Professional Development. Before we get started with our webinar, I wanted to share a few opening remarks. This webinar has been developed in response to the needs assessment of our NAP membership identified and done in 2017. This webinar is recorded and available free to our NAP members. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Dr. Al Rundio, who is co-editor-in-chief of the Journal of our Interprofessional Education and Practice. Dr. Rundio has held various faculty positions in Pennsylvania and New Jersey. He currently is a clinical professor of nursing at Drexel University, Philadelphia. Dr. Rundio practices part-time in Chemical Dependency Treatment Center in Southern New Jersey, caring for patients with substance use disorders. Al is the former Associate Dean for Nursing and Chief of Nursing Officer at Drexel University, and the former Vice President of Nursing, Chief Nursing Officer at Shore Medical Center, Somers Point, New Jersey. Dr. Rundio is a fellow in the National Academies of Practice, the International Academy of Addiction Nursing, and the American Academy of Nursing. He is also a 2017 AACN Wharton Fellow at the University of Pennsylvania. He has published over 10 books and numerous book chapters and articles on addiction, nursing administration, education, and practice. He also serves as associate editor for the Journal of Nursing, Education, and Practice. Dr. Rundio is a frequent speaker and consultant to healthcare facilities on healthcare issues and practice. He's an international leader in the field of nursing administration, addiction, education, and practice. Today, Al is going to discuss the Journal of Interprofessional Education and Practice, our official journal for the National Academies of Practice. This presentation will provide an overview of the types of articles the journal features, how to submit an article, the review process, scholarly writing, and how members of NAP can take an active role in being part of this journal. We're so excited to have you. I will turn it over to you, Dr. Rundio, and be back with everyone as we close.
Thank you so much. It's really great to be here, and it's great to be co-editor-in-chief of this journal because everything, as you know, is moving to interprofessional education and practice. And so the JIEP, as we call it, is the Journal of Interprofessional Education and Practice. It is published by Elsevier. And what we're going to do today is introduce you to the journal, a little bit about it, how to submit an article. We'll talk some about scholarly writing if you want to write an article. We'll talk about manuscript flow and usage and how to get involved. Now, there are two co-editors. Dr. Devin Nickel from the University of Nebraska Medical Center is the co-editor for the education side of the journal, and myself, Al Rundio, is the co-editor on the practice side of the journal. These are our associate editors on the practice side of the journal. Dr. Jane Bear-Lehman is a professor at New York University in New York City. Dr. Schlippa Register is an optometrist, and she is a professor at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. And Dr. Jonas New is a registered nurse, and he just accepted a deanship position at a community college in Texas. Without our associate editors, we would not be able to get our timely reviews done as well. They're a great asset to our team. This I am going to read, and I will tell you through the presentation, I do not read everything in every slide. I think that kind of makes for a boring presentation, but I do want to read this, and that's the aim and scope of the journal. There is an increasing impetus on the U.S. healthcare system for members of all healthcare disciplines to work together to improve the quality of care while reducing the cost of care. We know with quality problems in healthcare today, it's not just one discipline that creates it, it's usually multifactorial. So this journal really aims to help educators, researchers, and clinicians improve the quality of healthcare education and practice through truly synergistic interprofessional healthcare best practices. The Journal of Interprofessional Education and Practice supports publications of articles that address the field in its broadest perspective, including theory, practice, and research applications. The journal publishes original research and evidence-based practice articles addressing interprofessional education, practice environments, innovative care models, and measurable quality and safety initiatives, in addition to reviews, public policies, short reports, and book reviews. And it is our official journal, of course, for the National Academies of Practice. I'm responsible for the practice side. I introduced you to our 3 co-editors, and every individual member of the National Academies of Practice is entitled to a free electronic subscription of the journal. You can access it by accessing www.jieponline.com. The journal is published quarterly, 1 volume of 4 issues per year, and it's available online only. To submit an article, and again, you can go to the easier website, www.jieponline.com, or you can access what I posted here, and that will bring you to our journal, and then you will be able to access all the information on how to submit an article. We recently switched to a new manager system for the journal, and these are electronic systems where you load your articles and where they get reviewed. We were with eVise, and we switched to Editorial Manager at the end of April this year. First time using it, you'll create a login, then you click to start a new submission. You will upload your documents. You will supply the necessary information that they ask for. You can also look at a timeline, and it also links you to ORCIDs for all authors. So how do you get involved as a NAP member? There are several ways that you can get involved. Certainly by publishing articles is one way. By giving us ideas for the journal is another way. By being a reviewer is another way, which I will talk about as we go through this presentation. The Elsevier Publishing Campus offers a variety of education, networking opportunities, career planning opportunities. The information is endless. So I really encourage you to access the site and see what's available to you. Publishing Campus for reviewers, there are interactive courses, online lectures, quick how-to documents, and videos are available for prospective reviewers. So they just don't leave you out on your own. There's ways that you can review the information and learn what creates a good reviewer. Some topics covered are key principles and steps to follow and how to actually perform the review. There's also a reviewer recognition platform. It's a platform for your reviewers where you can track your performance. You can also collect rewards. A lot of times there are some rewards. And for example, what we are trying to get done, which hasn't happened yet, but is continuing education if you review an article. Some journals do that, and we've made that recommendation, and that's something that's not yet available, but that we continue to work on. And we think we'll be able to do that now that we are in Editorial Manager. Now I want to talk a little bit about scholarly publishing and some tips that hopefully will help you navigate the landscape when you want to publish an article. So Elsevier has what's called the Research Academy, and you can access this, and this will also assist you with publication. Some of the goals here to understand what academic publishing is: explore how to rate and choose a scientific journal, and hopefully the one you'll want to choose is the Journal of Interprofessional Education and Practice. Recognize what a good paper looks like, get to know the publication process, learn about the ethics of publishing, and explore some tools that can promote your research or your practice for publishing. The agenda here is to look at scholarly publishing, how to prepare a manuscript. We'll look at ethics of publishing, selecting a journal. We'll look at the journal publishing cycle. What happens? How long does it take? We'll look at what your author rights are. We'll also discuss open access journals and how you get noticed. So look at how publishing has changed over the years. I completed my PhD in 1990 at the University of Pennsylvania, and I talked to students today. When I did my dissertation, you had to go to the library and use card catalogs. What was very innovative back then was that CINAHL was now on a CD, that I could actually plug the CD in the library to access articles. But it all had to be done on site in the library. And then we certainly have evolved over time, and now of course you can access things like Google Scholar right from your cell phone. So it certainly has advanced, and it's much more easily to access research data from your fingertips. When you publish today, we'll look at this scientific, technical, and medical, what we call STEM publishing. And just to give you an idea, there are 2,000 STEM publishers. There are over 20,000 peer-reviewed journals and 1.4 million peer-reviewed articles that have been published. So the role of scholarly publications, first is registration. That creates a timestamp to officially note who submitted scientific results first. Then there's what we call certification. Here we perform peer review to ensure that the validity and integrity of the submission is accurate. Then there's dissemination. You provide a medium for discoveries and findings to be shared. And then there's preservation or archiving, preserving the minutes and record of science for posterity. Scholarly publishing is not homogeneous. Needs and practice vary greatly from one field to another. There are many venues of publishing, such as journal, books, and meetings. There's various levels of funding and where those sources of funding come from. For example, the federal government, or it could be a private foundation with funding. The demographics are going to vary: age, geographic location, the work setting. What are the normal review and publication times? That will vary by journal. My goal for our journal is to really try to get it where an article gets reviewed and goes to publication within ideally 2 to 3 months. And that would really put us ahead of many journals. But that also is dependent upon the reviewer. And then if the article needs revision, on the author to revise it in a timely manner. Then there are various types of review: pre-publication versus post-publication, single-blind, double-blind, or open. Our journal uses a double-blind system, usually with 2 reviewers. And then there also are citation rates, which we'll talk about. So how do you get published? Well, the first thing you have to do is prepare the manuscript. The types of manuscripts will vary by journal. Full articles, these are substantial, complete, and usually comprehensive pieces of research. Or for our journal, also comprehensive pieces of practice. There can be letters or short communications. These are usually quick and early communications. There are also review papers, summaries of recent developments on a specific topic. These are often submitted by invitation. And also in our journal, we get pages with every volume for the society to publish key events that have occurred. For example, what will be coming out in the next publication is the strategic planning meeting that we recently had in September of this year. The process of writing is to build an article. So first you usually start with the title and abstract. Then there's an introduction, and if it's research, you'll include the methods, results, and a discussion session, and then you end with a conclusion. And a lot of articles will also include figures or tables, which displays your data. Some key concepts to submit effective manuscript titles. Use the fewest possible words. Adequately describe your content. Identify the main issue, and do not use uncommon abbreviations. In fact, when writing, most people, if they have an abbreviation, will have it written out and then in parentheses the abbreviation for it, and then use the abbreviation throughout the article. But you first describe what that abbreviation is. The abstract really is the advertisement for your article. A lot of times it's the abstract that really draws the person into the article. And I know from doing research, when I look at articles, when I do a search that I think will be appropriate for my research, the first thing I read is the abstract. And a lot of times I find it really isn't relevant to what I'm researching, or it may be. So then if it's not relevant, I'm not going to read the entire article. You want to make the abstract interesting and understandable. You want to draw the reader in, make it accurate and specific. A clear abstract strongly influences whether or not your work is considered. And beware of what we call the spin. The frequency of positive words in abstracts increased from 1.7 to 2.3% of PubMed abstracts in 1974 to 1990, and look at the increase, 17.5% in 2014. The words with the largest increases were robust, novel, innovative, unprecedented, and groundbreaking, kind of terms that we're very familiar with that are used today. You'll have a list of references and you'll review references. Always ensure you have fully absorbed the material you are referencing. Avoid excessive self-citations, citations of your own work. Avoid excessive citations of publications from the same institution. And if required, conform strictly to the style given in the instructions for authors. And also, where I will question, especially evidence-based articles, how old are the references? It's now 2019. If someone's using references from the early 2000s, where's the most current evidence? So you want to be tuned to that, because a lot of times the article will then be sent back to update references in the article. And there is plenty of help with your article. You know, writing an article, it's hard work. It takes time. Oftentimes you have to sort through research, you have to prepare references, you have to source feedback. One way you can get help is through Mendeley. It's a free reference manager and an academic social network. The Mendeley Reference Manager generates citations and bibliographies, and they can put it into certain formats like Word or OpenOffice. You can also use Mendeley to connect with colleagues and securely share paper notes and annotations. You can also use it for social networking to identify potential collaborators. Now, there's the ethics of publication. And this is really something that you really want to be aware of. If you don't follow ethical guidelines, you can be called on for it. So an important disclaimer is while the following slides offer guidance and general principles or responsibilities that authors need to consider, different aspects of publishing ethics can vary greatly by discipline or journal. It's recommended that all authors consult their peers, advisors, and journal editors to learn the specific author responsibilities in their discipline. And we also outline this in the information for authors in our journal, which is available online. So what should you conform to? Well, one is the originality of the work that you submit, that the data is real and not fabricated, that you obtained necessary permissions if you're sharing other person's work, that you obtain any necessary privacy waivers, such as subjects, that you comply with research standards and guidelines, that your compliance is with the publisher and journal ethics and the conflict of interest policies, that the manuscript, and this is critical, gets submitted only to one journal at a time. You should never submit your manuscript to 2 journals at the same time to see if one will publish them. You wait until you get a notice from the journal that you submitted it to, if it's accepted or if it's not accepted, or if you feel it's taking too long and you want to submit it to a different journal, then you write to the editor and you withdraw the submission before you submit it elsewhere. And that you recognize the contributions of each author and that you have an agreement of all co-authors. Authorship policies are going to vary across disciplines, cultures, and journals. One example is the International Committee of Medical Journal Editors recommends that an author must meet 4 criteria: that the substantial contribution to the conception or design of the work or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of the data of the work, and that they draft the work or revise it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published, an agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work to make certain that the questions related to accuracy and integrity on any part of the work are investigated and resolved. Some general principles. Order of authors will vary by discipline and culture, but a common rule is that the first author listed in the article is the person who conducts, supervises the data collection, the data analysis, presentation, interpretation of the results, and puts together the paper for submission. The corresponding author can be the first author or sometimes is a senior author from the institution. Avoid ghost authorship. What is that? Well, excluding authors who participated in the work, what we call a ghostwriter. They should be recognized if they contributed to the article. Avoid gift authorship. What is that? Well, my colleague's going up for tenure and they need more publications. So even though they didn't contribute to the work, I'm going to list them as an author so they're recognized. Again, if they didn't contribute to the work, they shouldn't be listed as an author. And all authors should be aware that they are being included. Now let me make a couple other comments. One of the things that can hold the article up, and I've seen this, an article will be submitted with the lead author and other authors, and it's ready for publication, and then I'll get an email, well, we forgot to list one author. Can we still do it? Or they want to change the lead author. We forgot to include this person as the lead author, and it shouldn't be the one listed. Well, then there's a way to get it changed. We can do it, but it's just going to delay things. So before you submit an article, really make certain that you include everyone that you want recognized, that they're listed in the order that you want them, and that the first author is the first author on the article when you submit it. Now, conflicts of interest. In Editorial Manager, you will usually sign and complete it online, and it's attesting that there is no conflict of interest. And there are direct questions that you will agree with or disagree with or have to provide additional information. So conflicts of interest can center on a variety of things. So one is a direct financial conflict of interest. Employment, stock ownership, grants, patents. For example, I will not review for a journal that's interprofessional in nature because I'm already with a journal of interprofessional practice. My other journal that I'm on is the Journal of Addictions Nursing, and that's totally separate from what I do with this journal. Indirect financial, receiving honoraria, consultancies, mutual fund ownership, or expert testimony. Career and intellectual, promotion or direct rival. There can be institutional conflicts or your own personal belief. The proper way to handle it is through transparency and disclosure. The journal level, this means disclosure of the potential conflict in your cover letter to the journal editor. You don't want to plagiarize, and it's amazing from teaching so long, how people plagiarize and they don't think they are. So plagiarism is the appropriation of another person's ideas, processes, results, or words without giving appropriate credit. including those obtained through confidential review of others' research proposals and manuscripts. And that's a definition from the Federal Office of Science and Technology policy that goes back to 1999. In general, if you are using anyone's ideas, you've got to cite that. You've got to recognize where that information comes from. So correct citation is key. Crediting the work of others, including your advisors or your own previous work by citation, is important for at least these three reasons: to place your own work in context, to acknowledge the findings of others on which you have built your research, and to maintain the credibility and accuracy of the scientific literature. Many editors have access to Crosscheck, which is a huge database of 30+ million articles from 50,000 journals from 400 publishers, and then you can see if anything was plagiarized. And our journal also, when submitted, goes through a system like that to identify that the work is original and hasn't been copied. Can you plagiarize your own work, like text, recycling, self-plagiarism? It's a very gray area, but best err on the side of caution. Always cite, quote, even your own previous work. Editors may conclude that you intentionally exaggerated your output, and the methods sections can be particularly challenging. And what about image manipulation? Manipulation for clarity versus manipulation for deception or fraud. General policy: no specific feature within an image may be enhanced, obscured, moved, removed, or changed. Adjustments of brightness, contrast, or color balance are acceptable if you can, as long as they don't obscure or eliminate any information present in the original. Nonlinear adjustments, such as changes to grammar settings, must be disclosed in the figure legend, and figures or parts of figures should not be duplicated, spliced together from figures published elsewhere. When in doubt, disclose and cite. Methods. What about ethics committee approval? When we talk about ethics committee approval, in most organizations, we're talking about institutional review board approval. You know, experiments on humans or animals must follow applicable ethical standards, and they are reviewed at the institutional review board level. You'll need approval from that committee. It needs to be specified in the manuscript, covering letter, or the online submission system, and editors can make their own decisions on ethics. What are the consequences? What happens if someone didn't cite something and they used the work and they got called on for it? You know, when you publish something, if you don't cite someone's original work and it's in there and that person reads that, they will call the journal and file a complaint. So the consequences can vary according to the severity of the misconduct and the standards set by the journal editors, the institutions, and the funding bodies. Some possible actions include usually written letters of concern and reprimand in some form. The article may be retracted, or some form of disciplinary action on the part of the researcher's institute or funding body. Next, how do you select the journal? So the question is asked, how do I reach the right audience for my paper most effectively? How long should I expect to wait for a decision? And what is the reputation? Now, when in doubt, I had someone email me this morning seeing if their article would be appropriate in our journal. So don't hesitate to email the editor to see if your article, and give a little snapshot about what the article is, if it's appropriate for that journal. For our journal, it has to involve interprofessional work. If there's no interprofessional work, it's like a study in nursing and nothing else. It doesn't fit then the intent of our journal. Identify an appropriate journal. Look at the manuscript's references for potential journals. You can search PubMed, Google Scholar, Scopus, using relevant keywords. Check with your supervisor or colleagues for recommendations, and ask a librarian for resources that can help. You can also use Elsevier's Journal Finder tool. It's a free finder service, and look at the aims and scopes of any prospective journal, which I read to you at the beginning of this presentation. Consider the type of access your article will have. There's free and permanent access to scholarly research. It's referred to as public access in the United States. There's two levels, what we call gold open access and green open access. In gold open access, a final version of the article is immediately accessible to everyone. The cost of publishing is recovered up front, and it's typically as an article publishing, there may be a charge. Green open access is a version of a subscription article made freely available. It relies on the subscription model to continue to operate, usually after an embargo period, and normally a draft copy of the article, but can also be the final version. And if you publish in a new journal, be diligent when assessing a new journal. Who is involved, and are they really? What promises are made regarding peer review? Has the journal published articles yet, and are they any good? What are the journal's archiving policies if publication ceases? Beware of predatory journals, but remember that not all new journals are predatory. One example would be some of the open access journals that you pay to publish in. You submit the article and then it's published the next day. There's no way it can go through peer review in a day. And so you would question something like that. Remember that new journals will not yet be indexed in Medline, PubMed, or other services. They will not yet have an impact factor. An impact factor, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, really develops over time. The impact factor. How many times the papers in a journal are cited on average? It gets influenced by editorial policies of journals and turnover of research within a field. And basically what they do, they calculate the impact factor based on the number of articles published and the number of articles that were cited, and then it gives you a score. So looking at variation among fields, when you look, for example, at the New England Journal of Medicine, a journal that's been around for years, highly regarded journal in medicine, you can see their impact factor is the highest, 70.670. Most of the nursing journals and other journals are not that high. You can go all the way down to the American Historical Review, which is an impact factor of 1.456. So the higher the impact factor, the more rigorous and more cited the journal. Read the instructions for authors. You'll find them on the journal homepage. When you access our journal homepage, there is a guide for authors, is what it's called. When you open that icon up, you will find several other sites that you can visit, and it gives you all the author guidelines. Follow the instructions for your authors. Our journal is fairly liberal. We like the AMA format, but it doesn't have to be utilized. We tend to be a lot more liberal, encouraging people to write to their style. Editors or reviewers may be negatively influenced by poorly prepared manuscripts, so you want to do it right. The other thing too, if you're not from an English-speaking country, make sure someone has reviewed your article, because if the article is not written correctly, it will probably be sent back or even rejected. The journal publishing cycle. Where did my paper go, and will you ever see it again? And I have published for some journals where it's taken like 2 years to get it published. So we're really trying to definitely change that in our journal. So this is the cycle. You have manuscript submission. It then goes to peer review. We select peer reviewers. Then it's going to either be accepted, rejected. A lot of times it goes for minor revision or major revision and resubmission. It's edited and prepared. Then it gets produced, it gets published and disseminated, and then it gets archived for promotional use. So we are now going to talk about manuscript submission and peer review systems. So online peer review systems accept the manuscript submissions and facilitate online peer review. In our journal, it automatically comes up that they give you 14 days for peer review. I usually change that to 21 days. I think it's fair to give a reviewer at least 3 weeks to review an article and get back to us with a recommendation. Online systems can handle hundreds of thousands of submissions and reviews per year. Now, this is a little joke in here for peer review, but most scientists regarded the new streamlined peer review process as quite an improvement, and basically they're going to club you until you get down to the end. We don't do that. Peer review helps to determine the quality, validity, significance, and originality of the research. It helps to improve the quality of papers. And then the variations, it can be blind, double-blind, and open. And I told you we use a double-blind system. Can be pre versus post-publication or a combination. There can be collaborative peer review and portable peer review. And then the decision. What everyone shoots for is that it gets accepted. And some of our articles do get accepted. Everything is perfect in the article and there are no recommended changes. Usually that's not the case, but it does happen occasionally. It can be outright rejected. And you'll learn from the feedback provided and, of course, improve the work for resubmission. A lot of the articles will have a minor revision, and that's really a good sign it's going to be published if you make the edits and resubmit it quickly. And the major revision, it's still a good chance of it getting accepted, but you have to revise it. Again, maybe the references are too old and we want better references in it. What you want to do ideally is answer the comments one by one, explain the change that you made or did not make. If you feel a remark is not justified or the request is unreasonable, say so. Substantiate your response. We're not the authors of the article. There may be a reason, a very valid reason why the remark from the reviewer is not appropriate, and you got to say that. Then submit the revised version, highlighting where the changes have been made. Again, acceptance is not guaranteed, but if you make the required changes, usually the article is accepted. Okay, now we're going to talk about, if you click it again, you'll get the, there you go, editing and preparing it and production. Okay. So the journal article production, preprint, author submits the manuscript, gets accepted, then it's arranged as a document proof. It'll be copy edited, author proofing, and preparation for publishing. So when the article is accepted and it gets put into a form, it's going to go back to the author for a final review to make sure everything is accurate. And I highly recommend that you read it word for word again. And then the article will go through the logo, the pagination, and branding, and it gets published in the journal. Okay. Now we'll publish and we'll disseminate the information. Pardon me. And so it gets disseminated in traditional articles, hard copy, again in electronic form, and also on a mobile application. Our journal is an electronic journal, and it's available online. And then finally, it's going to get archived and promoted for use. So it will be archived. In addition to traditional print archives, in some cases, there'll be multiple distributed electronic archives that help to ensure the preservation of the journal content for posterity. Now, what are your rights as an author post-publication? So there are some copyright fundamentals I want to discuss. First, authors, and in some cases their employers, have the right under national copyright laws and international treaties to control how their works are to be utilized and distributed to others. The extent of the copyright allows authors to permit copying, distribution, online access, translation, and creation of other derivative works of research. So copyright really protects the way you express your thoughts and describe your research and your conclusions in your writing. It does not protect the underlying facts or ideas of your work. So when you look at copyright and publication, publishers cannot publish an article unless they are granted the right to do so. This is determined by a publishing agreement between the author and the publisher. For example, in subscription journals, it's common to transfer the copyright to the publisher. In open access, authors retain copyright and grant publishers a license to publish their article. So authors retain copyright of the article, a patent, trademark, and other intellectual property rights in the article. The publisher gets the right to publish and distribute the article, be it exclusive or non-exclusive, and the right to adapt the article for latest technology even after publication. Some rights retained by authors of subscription articles, and this is an example, for teaching. You would be allowed to make copies of the article for use in your classroom teaching. For scholarly sharing, copies of the article can be shared with research colleagues. For further works, an article can be used in compilations, expanded to book form, or used in thesis or dissertation. Educational materials. The article can be included in the author's institution or company e-course packs or company training. For meetings and conferences, you can present and copies can be made for attendees for a meeting or conference that you're doing. And patent and trademark rights for any invention disclosed or product identified. You know, for example, we have a researcher here at Drexel who has a patent on a very interesting device for measuring output. And so if she would write about that, that patent stays with her. And then open access publishing. And we talked a little bit about this. Gold open access. The access is free public access to the final published article. The access is immediate and permanent. There can be a fee. Open access fee may be required with payment by the author or on their behalf. The user, it's determined by the user license. And the option, publish in an open access journal. Publish in a journal that supports open access, also known as a hybrid journal. The green open access, it's free public access to a version of your article. There may be a time delay applied, what we call an embargo period. There's no fee if payable by the author, as costs are covered by library subscriptions. The authors retain the right to use their articles for a wide range of purposes. Open versions of your article should have a user license attached. There'll be a link to your article. Selected journal features open the archives, and a self-archive of your version may be available. You always want to check any open access requirements of your institution and your funding body. What's the user license? It describes how readers can use your article, which may include commercial reuse. Know your organizational policies. Some funders require specific licenses. There can be a commercial license, and there's what we call a non-commercial license. And then Research for Life Collaboration provides free or low-cost access to thousands of peer-reviewed journals to public institutions in over 100 developing countries. And then getting your paper noticed, getting your article noticed. Information overload. The volume of research articles really is growing at a very accelerated pace. For most researchers, it's a challenge to keep up with the literature. So your job is to make sure your research doesn't fall through the cracks. According to one study, 40% of researchers surveyed said that they had not read the whole article for the last important article that they had read. Generally, there's about 7 hours per week average time spent on literature. And then preparing your article, writing and publishing it. Spend time on the abstract, on your conclusion and references. Share research data and link to it in your article. Use easy to understand charts and professional looking illustrations. Use clear and correct manuscript language, and be careful of what I call run-on words. You know, I've learned this through the years that when you have these very long sentences that go on and on and on, they get very ambiguous. It's much shorter sentences, clear and concise, really make the best articles. And then make sure you select the right journal to publish in. To prepare the article, you can use search engine optimization. Again, there are many search engines too available, both at Elsevier and also online. And then promote your article. You know, share your work at conferences. Share it online. Do poster presentations. Use media relations. Explain the significance of your research or your practice and the key outcomes. Make use of your institution or funding body's communication channels. Use social media, especially, you know, the millennials and all are into social media. So tweeting messages, Instagram, the variety of social media that's out there, Facebook, etc., is out there where you can share your work. And then promote your article through social collaboration networks. One we talked about was Mendeley, and this is giving you an example of that. Share your publications with groups and connect with research colleagues and join new communities. Some tips for effective outreach: keep it short, accurate, and relevant. Make it easy to find out more through the journal citation, the contact person. Understand that even if you're careful, your work may still be misrepresented. Many people react without reading the article with their own agenda. Compelling headlines attract more readers and commonly ignored or misunderstood the sample size, the p-value, causality, and other variables. Be accurate and provide numbers. And then monitor your article. Get feedback on downloads, shares, and citations. You can get data about the geographic location and research discipline of your readers, search terms used to find your publications, and certainly a comparison of the performance of your article with other people's articles. And further reading, you can turn to Elsevier's Research Academy, elsevier.com for authors, elsevier.com for reviewers, elsevier.com for editors. And certainly if you go to our journal website, you will find all the information for authors and access to a lot of resources. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time and expand a little bit more for the need for reviewers. The way we can get timely reviews done is if we have reviewers that are willing to commit to at least review 2 to 4 articles per year. We do try to match the reviewer with the type of article that is written. If you want to be a reviewer, submit your interest to myself as co-editor. I appreciate if you send a CV or a resume highlighting your areas of expertise. Send your contact information, in particular the email address that you would want us to put into the review system, because that's how we notify you of articles to be reviewed. Once entered into the system, you will complete an online program for reviewers and then submit timely reviews. And I previously mentioned I usually put 21 days to be done for a review. Now, what I try to do and what the system allows us to do, when I go to select a reviewer, if you're already reviewing an article, it highlights it for me. And I never intentionally try to request you to review when you're already reviewing an article. Again, if at times when we request a review and you're up to your eyeballs and stuff, which happens, you know, you may say, right now is a bad time for me to review. I have to do this and this, and you decline to review it. If you consistently decline to review it, then when we request a reviewer, we're probably going to drop you as a reviewer because we do need people to review. But we really try not to overwhelm you with reviews annually. Again, usually doing 2 to 4 reviews per year. And again, we're always looking to add new reviewers. The more we add, hey, then maybe only people would have to review 1 article a year. And if we could turn it around timely, that's what's really going to get more relevant articles into our system. That's it. That's what I had to present. I hope you get involved. Don't hesitate to contact me with ideas for the journal. We're always looking for new ideas. If you want to publish and you want to run it by me, you can do it. My email address is listed there. I utilize my home email address the most. I'm in it a few times every day, and I try to respond to you quickly. And I hope you really become part of the journal. I hope you publish an article, and I hope you really consider being a reviewer. Thank you for listening to this audio.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rundio, for an informative and engaging presentation. Should you have any questions, as was mentioned, please do not hesitate to reach out to him through our journals. We want to thank our NAP members for joining us today, and have a wonderful rest of your day.